I'd been sitting in my den for the better part of an hour, watching the late autumn light fade over the Bow River through my window, listening to the old grandfather clock tick its steady rhythm in the hallway. The house felt larger than usual that afternoon, emptier somehow. It had been 2 years since Margaret passed, and I still hadn't quite grown accustomed to the silence. Before I continue, I should mention that I'm sharing this story because I believe it might help someone else recognize the warning signs I almost missed. If you find value in what I'm about to tell you, please subscribe to the channel and let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Your support helps me reach others who might need to hear this. My phone buzzed on the side table. Connor's name lit up the screen. My son. We hadn't spoken in nearly 3 months, maybe longer. Our relationship had been strained for years, if I'm being honest. Ever since he married Melissa, something had shifted. The calls became less frequent, the visits practically non-existent. Holidays were perfunctory at best. "Dad," his voice came through warm, almost cheerful. "How are you doing?" I blinked at the phone. "I'm fine, Connor. Is everything all right?" "Everything's great. Listen, I've been thinking. You're all alone in that big house, and Melissa and I have been talking. We're worried about you." Worried. The word hung in the air like a question mark. "There's nothing to worry about. I manage just fine." "Dad, you're 64. That house is too much for one person. The yard alone." He paused, and I could hear muffled conversation in the background, Melissa's voice. "Look, we want to come stay with you for a while. Help out around the place. Make sure you're eating properly. Just be there." My grip tightened on the phone. Connor hadn't been there for anything in years. He'd missed Margaret's funeral, citing a work emergency. Sent flowers 3 days late. "That's not necessary. Really. Dad." His tone shifted, took on that edge I recognized from his teenage years when he wanted something. "We're family. Let us do this. Please. We can be there by Friday. I've already arranged time off work." Something in his insistence felt wrong, but I couldn't articulate why. Maybe I was being ungrateful. Maybe grief had made me cynical. Maybe my son genuinely wanted to reconnect. "All right," I heard myself say. "Friday. Perfect. We'll see you then, Dad. Take care of yourself until we get there." The call ended, and I sat staring at the phone for a long moment. Outside, the streetlights were beginning to flicker on along Memorial Drive. Somewhere in my chest, a small, uncomfortable feeling had taken root. I told myself it was just surprise. Just the unfamiliarity of Connor's sudden attention. I should have listened to that feeling. Friday arrived gray and cold. The kind of November day Calgary specializes in, where the wind cuts through your jacket and the sky threatens snow it won't deliver. Connor's silver SUV pulled into my driveway at exactly 3 o'clock. He'd always been punctual, I'd give him that. Melissa emerged first, all smiles and perfectly styled blonde hair, carrying what looked like an expensive casserole dish. Connor followed, hauling 2 large suitcases from the back. "Dad!" He embraced me at the door, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne. "Good to see you. You look well." I didn't return the compliment. He looked tired, older than 38. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there last time I'd seen him. "Mr. Mitchell." Melissa kissed my cheek, continental style. "We brought dinner. Connor told me how much you love my lasagna." I'd never eaten her lasagna. Couldn't recall Connor ever mentioning I might enjoy it. They settled in quickly. Too quickly. Connor took his old bedroom upstairs, and within an hour, their belongings were spread throughout the house, as if they'd always been there. Melissa had reorganized my kitchen cupboards to be more efficient. Connor had moved the furniture in the living room for better flow. "You don't mind, do you, Dad?" Connor asked, not waiting for an answer. "We just want you to be comfortable." That night, we ate Melissa's lasagna at the dining room table, the one Margaret and I had bought 30 years ago in a small furniture shop on 4th Street. Connor talked about his work in commercial real estate, about properties and deals and investments. Melissa nodded along, adding details, touching his arm. I ate and watched and said little. The lasagna was rich, heavy. I felt full after only a few bites. "Not hungry, Dad?" Connor's eyes tracked my plate. "Just not used to eating this much anymore." "It's excellent, Melissa. There's plenty left over. You should have it for lunch tomorrow." Her smile was bright, insistent. The first week passed in a blur of their presence. Connor cooked breakfast every morning, eggs and bacon and toast, portions too large for me to finish. Melissa brought me tea in the afternoons, sweetened the way I'd never taken it. They were attentive to the point of suffocation, always hovering, always asking if I needed anything, and I started to feel unwell. It began with fatigue, a heaviness in my limbs that made climbing the stairs an effort. Then came the nausea, subtle at first, just a vague unease after meals. By the second week, I was experiencing stomach cramps that woke me in the night. My hands trembled when I tried to hold my morning coffee. "You look terrible, Dad," Connor observed one morning, and there was something in his voice, something that might have been satisfaction if I didn't know better. "When's the last time you saw your doctor?" "I had my checkup 6 months ago. Everything was fine." "That was 6 months ago. You should go again. Want me to make you an appointment?" I shook my head, though the room swam slightly with the movement. "I'll call Dr. Chen myself." "Dad," Connor leaned forward, his expression concerned, and I wondered when he'd learned to manufacture that look so well. "I'm worried about you. You're not yourself. Let me help." But I did call Dr. Chen. James Chen had been my physician for 15 years, had seen Margaret through her final illness. His office was in a medical building off 14th Street, and I'd walked there countless times. That morning, though, Connor insisted on driving me. "You shouldn't be behind the wheel feeling like this," he said, and Melissa nodded agreement. Dr. Chen's receptionist worked me in between appointments, and I sat in the familiar waiting room with Connor beside me, scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing at me with that expression of concern. "Robert." Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, his kind face creasing with a smile that faded when he saw me. "Come on back." Connor stood. "I'll come with you, Dad." "That won't be necessary," Dr. Chen said smoothly. "I'm sure Robert is capable of answering his own health questions. There's good coffee in the break room down the hall if you'd like some while you wait." In the examination room, Dr. Chen's demeanor changed immediately. He took my vitals in silence, his movements efficient and practiced. Then he sat back on his stool and studied me with dark, thoughtful eyes. "Tell me everything, and I mean everything, Robert. When did these symptoms start?" I recounted it all. The fatigue, the nausea, the trembling hands, the stomach pains. He made notes, asked questions, took my temperature, listened to my heart. "I'm going to order some blood work," he said finally. "Comprehensive panel. I want to rule out a few things." "What things?" He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw something that made my stomach clench for reasons that had nothing to do with illness. "Let's wait for the results. Can you come back Monday? I'll put a rush on the labs." "James, we'd known each other long enough to drop formalities when it mattered. What are you thinking?" He glanced at the closed door, then back to me, and his voice dropped. "Your symptoms concern me. The combination, the rapid onset. Have you made any changes to your diet recently? Any new medications? Supplements?" "No, nothing." "Well," I paused. "My son and his wife moved in 2 weeks ago. They've been cooking for me." Something flickered across his face. "I see. And before they arrived, you felt fine?" "Perfectly fine." He was quiet for a moment, then pulled out his prescription pad and wrote quickly, "I want you to take this to the pharmacy downstairs. It's for activated charcoal tablets. Take them 3 times a day with water. Don't let anyone else handle your medication. Do you understand?" The way he said it, the intensity in his voice, made something cold settle in my chest. "James, what are you suggesting?" He met my eyes directly. "I'm not suggesting anything yet. But Robert, if the blood work shows what I suspect it might show, we'll need to talk. Privately. Until then, be careful about what you eat and drink. Very careful. And don't mention the charcoal tablets to anyone." I left the office with Connor, the prescription folded in my pocket, questions spiraling through my mind. Connor talked about lunch, about running errands, but I barely heard him. I filled the prescription at a pharmacy across town, telling Connor I needed to pick up a book I'd ordered. He waited in the car, checking his phone. That night, I declined Melissa's offer of chicken soup. I made myself toast and ate it in my room, took the charcoal tablets Dr. Chen had prescribed. Connor appeared in my doorway. "You sure you don't want dinner, Dad? Melissa made it special for you." "I'm sure. Just need to rest." His eyes lingered on me, and I couldn't read what was in them. Concern? Frustration? Something else? All right. Well, there's plenty if you change your mind. It'll keep. Monday came slowly. I'd been taking the charcoal tablets religiously, had been eating only food I prepared myself. Simple things, toast and fruit and cheese. The nausea had lessened, the trembling in my hands less pronounced. I noticed Connor watching me at breakfast, noting that I'd made my own oatmeal. Feeling better? He asked. Some. Good. That's good, Dad. Dr. Chen's office called at 10. Could I come in at 2? Yes, I could. Connor offered to drive again, but I insisted I was well enough to manage myself. The drive to Dr. Chen's office felt longer than usual. Calgary traffic moved around me, normal people doing normal things, and I sat at red lights wondering if I was losing my mind. Surely, Connor couldn't. But then why had Dr. Chen been so careful? Why the private prescription? James Chen's expression when he led me into his office told me everything before he said a word. Sight down. Robert. Saturday. He placed a folder on the desk between us, opened it to show a page of numbers and medical terminology I didn't fully understand. Your blood work came back. Robert, you have elevated levels of arsenic in your system. Significantly elevated. This isn't environmental exposure. This is intentional. The words didn't feel real. Arsenic. Poisoning. Intentional. Someone is poisoning you, Dr. Chen continued, his voice gentle but firm. Based on the levels in your symptoms, I'd say it's been happening gradually over the past 2 weeks. Small doses, probably mixed into food or drink. If it had continued much longer, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Connor, I whispered, I can't make that determination. But Robert, the timeline matches exactly with when he moved in. And poisoning of this nature, it's almost always someone with close access, someone who handles your food regularly. My own son was trying to kill me. What do I do? First, we involve the authorities. I'm legally obligated to report this. Second, you cannot go back to that house alone. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay? I thought of Sarah, my daughter. She lived in Vancouver working as a teacher. We spoke every week, video calls where she'd tell me about her students and I'd pretend my life was fine. Sweet, kind Sarah, who'd flown home the moment she heard about Margaret, who'd stayed for 2 months to help me through the grief. I'll call my daughter. Do it now. Use my office phone if you need privacy. I'm going to call the Calgary Police Service and Health Services. This is attempted murder, Robert. They'll need to investigate. My hands shook as I dialed Sarah's number. She answered on the third ring, sounding breathless. Dad, is everything okay? You never called during the day. Sarah. My voice cracked, and I heard her sharp intake of breath. Dad, what's wrong? Are you hurt? I need you to listen carefully. Don't interrupt. Can you do that? Yes, of course. I told her everything. The call from Connor, the move-in, the illness, Dr. Chen's discovery. She was silent throughout, and when I finished I heard her crying. I'm booking a flight right now, she said, her voice thick. I'll be there tonight. Dad, don't go home, do you hear me? Don't go anywhere near Connor. Dr. Chen is calling the police. Good. God, Dad, I can't believe. Connor? Her voice rose. Our brother? He's trying to. Why? Why would he do this? I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know. But even as I said it, understanding was beginning to dawn. My estate was worth approximately $800,000. The house alone, in Calgary's Altadore neighborhood, was valued at over $600,000. I had life insurance, investments, savings. Margaret and I had been careful, prudent. We'd built something substantial to leave our children. And Connor. Connor had always lived beyond his means. The expensive cars, the designer clothes, the investment properties he'd mentioned. What if they weren't successful? What if he needed money? What if he needed it desperately enough to... 2 police officers arrived at Dr. Chen's office within the hour. Detective Williams and Detective Park, both with Calgary Police Service. They took my statement, asked detailed questions, examined the blood work results. Mr. Mitchell, Detective Williams said, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a gentle manner, We're going to need your permission to conduct a search of your home. We'll also need samples of any food or drink in the house, and we'll need to question your son and daughter-in-law. Do whatever you need to do. We'd also like to set up surveillance. With your cooperation, we could wire your home, maybe have you return there for a few days while we gather evidence. But I won't lie to you, it would be dangerous. No, Dr. Chen interjected. Absolutely not. Robert's levels are already critical. More exposure could be fatal. Detective Park, a younger man with kind eyes, nodded. We can work around that. Mr. Mitchell, do you have security cameras in your home? No. I never felt the need. We'll install some. Hidden cameras. If your son is poisoning you, he's likely doing it when you're not present or aware. We need to catch him in the act. Sarah's flight landed at 8 that evening. I met her at the airport, and she ran to me, threw her arms around me so tightly I could barely breathe. Dad. Oh, Dad. She looked older than 32 in that moment. Tired, frightened. My little girl, confronting the reality that her brother was trying to murder her father. We stayed at a hotel that night, the Fairmont Palace downtown. Sarah ordered room service that we barely touched. She sat on the edge of my bed, holding my hand. I should have known something was wrong, she said. Connor never does anything without a reason. When he called me last month to ask about your health, I thought he was finally growing up, finally caring. I told him you seemed lonely. I practically suggested he visit. This isn't your fault. Did you change your will recently? Leave him anything specific? I shook my head. Everything's split 50-50 between you both. It's been that way since you were children. Then why is he doing this? If he kills you, I still get half. Unless, I realized with a chill, he planned to deal with Sarah next. Or unless he thought he could manipulate the situation, claim undue influence, contest the will. Connor had always been clever with money, with legal loopholes. Maybe he'd found an angle I couldn't see. The next morning, the police executed a search warrant on my home. Connor and Melissa were questioned separately. I watched from an unmarked car down the street as boxes of evidence were carried out. Food from the refrigerator, spices from the cupboard, dishes and cups and utensils. Detective Williams came to the car around noon. We found arsenic trioxide powder hidden in a vitamin bottle in your son's luggage, enough to kill several people. We're arresting him and his wife on suspicion of attempted murder. You'll need to testify, Mr. Mitchell. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Connor was led out in handcuffs, his face pale and shocked. He saw me in the car, and our eyes met across the distance. For a moment, I saw the boy he'd been, 7 years old, missing his 2 front teeth, begging me to push him higher on the swings at River Park. Then his expression hardened into something I didn't recognize, something bitter and angry and utterly foreign. Melissa followed, crying dramatically, proclaiming their innocence. The neighbors had gathered on their lawns, watching, whispering, my life, my private tragedy, becoming public spectacle. The hidden cameras the police had installed worked better than anyone expected. Over the next week, as forensics processed the evidence from my home, the footage told its story. Connor, alone in my kitchen at 6 a.m, carefully measuring white powder into a bowl. Melissa, watching the door while he worked. Connor adding the mixture to the container of oatmeal I kept in the cupboard. The coffee grounds, the sugar bowl. There was audio, too. Conversations the police had captured. Connor's voice. How much longer? He looks like hell. Melissa's response. Give it another week. We can't rush this. It has to look natural. Connor again. 800,000, Melissa. We're so close. Once he's gone, I can pay off the investors before they realize what happened. The real estate deal will look legitimate. What about Sarah? She's in Vancouver. By the time she gets involved, everything will be settled. I'm the executor. I'll handle it. Failed real estate investments. That's what it came down to. Connor had leveraged money he didn't have, made promises he couldn't keep, and when it all came crashing down, he decided his father's life was worth less than his financial reputation. The trial was scheduled for spring. Connor's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the Crown prosecutor wasn't interested. The evidence was too damning, too clear. Attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud. The charges mounted. Sarah moved back to Calgary. She took a teaching position at a school in Marda and moved into the house with me. We cleared out Connor's room, donated Melissa's reorganized kitchen items to charity. We repainted the walls, changed the locks, installed a proper security system. Some mornings I still felt ghost pains, phantom nausea that wasn't really there. Dr. Chen said it was psychological, trauma manifesting physically. He recommended therapy. I went, mostly for Sarah's sake. The house felt different now, smaller, in a good way. Sarah filled it with life, with her teacher friends who came for dinner, with the sounds of laughter and music. She planted new flowers in the garden that spring, bright yellow daffodils that Margaret would have loved. Connor wrote me a letter from jail. It arrived on a Tuesday, the envelope bearing the Calgary Remand Center's return address. Sarah brought it to me where I sat in the den, my usual spot by the window overlooking the river. "You don't have to read it," she said. I held the envelope, felt the weight of the paper, the presence of his words waiting inside. For a long moment I considered opening it. Maybe there would be an explanation that made sense. Maybe there would be genuine remorse. Maybe there would be some version of my son I could recognize in his words. Or maybe there would just be more poison, a different kind, seeping into my peace. I stood and walked to the fireplace. Sarah had lit it earlier, and the flames danced warm and bright. I placed the envelope on the mantel, unopened, next to a photograph of Margaret from our 30th anniversary. "Maybe someday," I said. "But not today." Sarah hugged me, and we stood there together, watching the fire burn, watching the early evening light paint the walls gold. Outside, Calgary was going about its business, the city I'd lived in for 40 years, full of ordinary people living ordinary lives. I'd almost lost mine to extraordinary betrayal, but I hadn't. I'd survived. And in surviving, I'd learned something Margaret used to tell me, something I hadn't fully understood until now. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. Connor's letter stayed on the mantel for a week, then a month, then longer. Eventually it became just another object in the room, invisible in its familiarity. I walked past it every day without seeing it, without thinking about it. That, I realized, was the truest form of moving on. Not forgiveness, not understanding, but simply choosing to look elsewhere, to fill my vision with things that deserved my attention. With Sarah's laughter, with the Bow River's constant flow, with the future I'd been given back, precious and fragile and entirely my own. The evening light fades a little earlier each day now. Winter's coming again to Calgary, bringing its cold and its darkness. But inside, the house is warm. Sarah is cooking dinner, something with garlic and herbs that smells like comfort. The grandfather clock ticks its steady rhythm. And I am here, alive, to hear it. That's all the revenge I need.